Hi, thank you for joining us here on In the 661 Youth Voices for Kern. Dean here and I, Veronica Morley, we are the associate producers of the show, and we are here with our host, Kiyoshi. Kiyoshi, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. I was already here, so.
Exactly. So Kiyoshi is the Associate Vice President, Community Action Partnership, Adventist Health Bakersfield. So Kiyoshi, you have a pretty big name here in Kern County. What made you decide to host our, brand new youth-run broadcast show? Well,
it's interesting, right? I think that the world is changing a lot. I think that the way that the youth communicates has changed a lot. That the youth is looking at ways of talking to each other that I think us older folks, I'm going to consider myself an older folk, don't, right? Snapchat, Facebook is actually considered, I would say, for older folk now these days. You've got Instagram, you've got all these different ways that younger people are communicating and are delivering and disseminating information. And I think that it's kind of the way of the future, that the way we kind of pass out information and create kind of programs is by using the youth and the mechanisms and the channels that younger folks use. My interest really in what this is too is where the future of Kern County is headed, right? You've got a young group of folks in Kern County who want to see this community do better, be better, provide better housing, better opportunities job-wise for them in the future, better economics for them in the future so they could buy a house, raise families, do all those things. And in my new role is providing better health, right? I mean, we in healthcare, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel like as an industry in general have done very well at treating people when they're sick, when they come to a hospital. But the future really isn't in making sure that people are treated only when they're sick, but also making sure that they stay healthy, that they're, that we're making sure they're well. So, I mean, everyone's going to break a bone every once in a while. That these things happen, and we want to be there for people for those kind of things. But how can we keep people from needing to see us for a heart attack? What are the steps that we can take in terms of providing access to healthy foods or wholesome foods, to exercise, to access to more be able to exercise, right? Because not everyone can afford a gym membership. How can we provide parks and areas of recreation and make it encourage so that we have a culture of wellness in our community? So how do we tell that story? And that story is not just a story of Bakersfield, but it's also south of Bakersfield, down in the communities of Arbon, Lamont, those communities. It's everywhere. We need to be spreading that message everywhere.
Yes. So how is your new position with Community Partnership Adventist Health different than doing the morning broadcast here at KGET?
Well, we're taping here in some of the studios at KGET. The hours are a little different, I'll tell you that much, right? I used to get up at 2:30 every morning. The hours are different. But I think, now I thought it was going to be interesting, the transition. As a journalist, you start out as a person who's supposed to be very neutral and objective. So when I went out and covered stories, we never took a side. We never had a dog in the fight. Now, I'm out there and I'm advocating. My job is to advocate for the wellness and health of this community and think of new ways of doing it, because the ways that we've done it, right? You look at all these different statistics, be it from STDs to obesity to cancer to heart disease. We're not doing so great. We're not doing hot. So doing the same thing is going to be great. So we need to advocate different ways of doing things so that we can improve our community. So I thought there was going to be an awkward transition going from Mr. Objective to now being the advocate, but it's not really, because as a journalist, you want to one of the sayings of my old boss was comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So your job really is to kind of advocate for the people that don't have a voice, and I still get to do that. My job is to think about all those people who don't have resources to food and healthcare and all those things, and how can we make that happen? How can we make healthcare equitable for everybody? Because it's an important thing that we need to do. So
I'm curious, Kiyoshi, because you talk about the transition from journalist to now being an advocate. How did that start? What brought you from being a journalist to then now working for Adventist Health?
In the healthcare, well, my life story, I don't want to bore you, everybody, with my life story. When I was a little baby, born in a log cabin, I started out wanting to be in healthcare. When I was in college, I was an EMT. I worked in hyperbaric medicine at my college. And so I thought I was going to be a doctor, and then kind of took a left turn somewhere, and journalism became a passion. I was writing for my newspaper in college, and so I went down the journalism field. I thought, well, maybe I'll marry healthcare and journalism down the road, and I'll be a healthcare journalist like Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN or something like that, right? And so I kind of took this long storied path into journalism that took me to Bakersfield, and I stayed here for 12 years, and then had kids, and that, really kids take over your life, and their life becomes yours, and so I needed something that worked a little bit better with their schedule and their life, and so then I made the transition kind of back to healthcare, so from healthcare to journalism back to healthcare again.
And is there anything that you miss about being a broadcast journalist?
Telling people stories is always a privilege, right? It's a fun thing to do. Meeting new people every day and never knowing what you're going to do for that day when you walk in the door is always an exciting thing to do. And also affecting change. And holding, like I said, holding people accountable who have power, because they have responsibilities along with that power to do the right thing for their constituents, particularly, right? Our job as journalists is to hold especially elected officials in government accountable, because they're using everyone's money to do these things. So that, to me, was an important role, and I really enjoyed that role.
So as a household name for journalism and broadcast media here in Kern County, do you have any advice for young journalists that are just getting their foot in the door?
Wow. I mean, I think just like any job, and this applies to everything, is be willing to do anything and everything, right? No job is what do they say about actors, right? No, there's no small parts, only small actors. Be willing to do anything and everything, because the way journalism is headed, right, for the younger folks, it's not being delivered through just the big traditional mainstream media anymore. It's being done through podcasts and through blogs and video blogs and all these things. And that means you have to learn how to shoot, write, edit, report, fact-checked, copy, edit. I mean, every job. So that's an important thing. Be willing to do and learn new skills all the time. And then just being true to yourself and in your community, right? I think that sometimes, we can get so caught up in stories that we forget to see what really the meaning of that story is. And really at the end, it's what does the reader get out of it, and making sure that you're doing the right thing for the reader or viewer, I guess, for that matter too.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. We are so happy to have you as the host of our show. And thank you all for watching us here on In the 661 Youth Voices for Kern, where we not only discuss events that affect the community, but especially the youth.